What we have here is the player's guide, and where I want to start is company operations. Let's ask this question first. What are you doing? What business are you running? Footwear. So I give these challenge coins out for people that will answer questions. Now, they won't all that be that easy. But on one side is my personal logo I designed using AI. And on the other side, it's a poo emoji, and it says people are scumbags. Now, as we go along, I will explain to you how people are scumbags. But right now, you're thinking, oh, I'm not a scumbag. Let me illustrate to you that you are indeed a scumbag. You are sitting with your friends, and there's only one piece of pizza left. Who do you think needs that piece of pizza? Be honest.
Whoever's hungrier.
Whoever's hungrier. You're such a humanitarian. Now, be truthful.
Me.
You, right? Yeah, and we all want to, it's socially appealing to say things like that, but that's not how people actually think. Once you understand how people actually think, you'll understand how the world really works, and you'll be able to make better decisions. By the way, I had one more thing up here that I forgot to write. And it's today, I told you I'm going to share a secret with you at every class, something I've learned along the way. And today's lesson is on the secret to public speaking. Do people like to publicly speak? No. In fact, they fear public speaking above spiders and death, which I think is really weird, right? Because actually a spider could kill you, so why shouldn't it be lower? But on with the story. So here's the idea. You cannot speak clearly without being able to think clearly. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. And you cannot think clearly with a full bladder. So here's the advice. Part 1, go to the bathroom immediately before you speak. Part 2, make sure your zipper is zipped. And when you do those things, it will boost your confidence in public speaking quite a bit. By the way, common one that I hear from people they say, picture your audience naked. That could go wrong in so many different ways. So I don't recommend that at all. Okay, so now here we are. We know we're doing shoes. What kind of shoes? Are we doing pumps, stilettos?
They have a large variety.
Of?
Sports.
Yeah, it's athletic shoes, right? So that's what we're doing. Now, some of the prices, sometimes people complain about the prices aren't reasonable or rational or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The prices work within this. Everyone's working with the same environment, so it doesn't matter. So let's start at company operations. You currently produce footwear at 2 facilities. Where are they? Yeah, North America and Asia Pacific. And folks, this is going to get really boring if Mr. Barentine is the only one who answers. Barentine, right? Actually, Captain Barentine. If Captain Barentine is the only one who answers, it's going to get really old. Okay, so you've got North America and Asia Pacific. You've got sufficient facility space to assemble 5 million pairs of athletic footwear annually without the use of overtime. Let's talk about overtime. What is overtime? Anybody here ever work by the hour? Other than Mr. Yeah, there's a 40-hour week by law, and if I make you work more than 40 hours per week, what do I have to do? Pay time and a half, or 150% of the regular wage. What does that mean for overtime and your expenses?
Increase.
Yeah, so when your overtime gets too high, maybe you think about hiring some additional people. Does that make sense? Or in this case now, in this world, what do we do instead? We buy a robot, right? So let's think this one through. So you've been to a McDonald's or a Taco Bell lately? How do you place your order?
Screen.
Yeah, screen. How did you used to place your order?
Cashier.
Yeah. Now there's one other thing that's going on here. Have you heard these people demanding like $15, $20 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers? Do you think these two things are related? When that wage price gets high enough, it becomes cost effective to employ technology. And the cost of technology is going down, and the cost of people is only going up. What does that tell us about the direction of things? More machines, fewer people. Does that make sense? Okay. So, back to the story here. See, management had only installed enough footwear equipment going into year 11 to assemble 4 million pairs without overtime. So, you guys understand the difference between the facility space and the equipment? So we've got a building, but the building is not entirely full with equipment. So we can add some equipment without having to build a different plant and increase our capacity. Somewhat newer Asia Pacific facility having sufficient facility space to assemble 6 million pairs, only has enough machines to do 4 million. You may install additional production equipment in the two facilities should you wish to bring assembly capability up to 11 million pairs, and you can operate overtime and get an extra 20%. So right now, you could produce 9.6 million pairs of shoes without installing additional equipment, and 13.2 million if you buy enough equipment to fill the space. Your company's worldwide sales in year 10, by the way, this whole thing, period 0, what I would call it, they're calling it year 10. So that means the first year, the year that you make your first decisions for, is year 11. And so we're going to do practice year 11, practice year 12. You guys are going to screw up royally, or you're going to learn something amazing. Either way, the data will be reset after that, and then we will start for reals. So there's no penalties or points associated with the practice decisions, but don't blow them off, because they're going to be what teaches you what you need to do when we start playing for real. Okay, so in year 10, it was 8.15 million pairs. So you have ample time to consider whether to construct additional space at the two existing facilities or construct new facilities in Europe, Africa, or Latin America. So now you know we've got the 4 regions. We've got North America, we've got Latin America, we've got Europe, Africa, and we've got Asia Pacific. The company markets its brand of athletic footwear to footwear retailers worldwide, to individuals buying on the company's website. In years past, the company had more assembly capacity than was needed to meet the worldwide buyer demand for branded footwear. It entered into competitive bidding for contracts to produce the private label stuff. Oh, I should have asked this question earlier. Should you expand immediately?
You still have, your sales are still lower than your current production capacity.
Yeah.
As of your,
So you don't even need your current production capacity. Should you be creating more? And it's always interesting, and I hopefully with only 2 teams and the fact that hopefully you're paying attention, no one will do it this time, but usually someone goes right out there and builds 2 factories. What does that do to your cash situation when you go out and build 2 factories? Oh yeah, it puts you in a tight spot. And then what happens if you can't fill those factories with production? And you got a lot of fixed costs and you don't have any income to cover it. Does that make sense? Do you guys know about fixed costs and variable costs? Very good. Okay. Moving on down. Just-in-time supply chain eliminates the need for maintaining materials inventories at facilities. Newly produced footwear is immediately shipped to one of the 4 distribution centers. So you've got no raw materials because of just-in-time. Mr. Bardwash, what does just-in-time inventory look like? What does that mean?
Like that, they're like on one day.
Yeah, so you only get the stuff when you need it. So I toured a Honda factory, and it was interesting because they were a JIT, just-in-time organization, and they actually had truck doors on the side of the factory, and the seats, the driver's seat would come in from one truck, the passenger seat would come in from another truck, and the first time they meet is there in the factory at the car as it's being put together. Now that means that those things have to be in order, right? They have to be in the proper order in those trucks, because not every car is going to have exactly the same color or surface material as in the seat. Now, the other thing is this. What happens if one of those trucks gets in a crash? Oh, you're in a world of hurt. You guys hopefully are old enough to remember what the world was like before COVID-19. And we were all running on just in time. And it was a well-oiled machine, and everything showed up just as we needed it. And then what happened? Yeah, the pandemic, and everything went straight to hell, right? Okay, so we've learned that perhaps we shouldn't, that we should have some buffer inventory, but for purposes of the game, we're doing just in time. Okay, many countries place import duties on footwear produced outside of their geographic region, and then they go on to talk about tariffs. You know, this is the first semester I've taught this class that I think you guys have any freaking idea what tariffs are. What's a tariff? Taxes on imports. Why are tariffs in the news now?
Trump loves it.
Trump loves them. Now, here's the trick. So just like takeover defenses in corporate mergers and acquisitions, if tariffs are used to bring other people to the table and get them to negotiate, they're a good thing. But if they're left in there forever, they're a bad thing. And so the question is this: is Trump a genius playing 3D chess, or he's an idiot playing in a sandbox? Only time will tell. But at least he's done one thing that I never managed to do, and that is to get you people to be aware of what a tariff is. Okay, your course instructor has the option to alter tariffs as the simulation progresses, so the current tariffs may prove temporary. Here's my first promise to you. I will not be changing the tariff rates. I will not be changing the tariff rates. This thing is hard enough without me throwing curveballs at you like that. Okay, so they said earlier that we ship these from the factory to the distribution center. So the only finished goods inventory that we have are at these distribution centers. Each distribution center maintains sufficient inventory of each model and size to enable orders to be delivered within 1 to 4 weeks from the time the order is placed. You will decide whether to operate each distribution center in a manner that enables 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, or 4 week delivery to retailers. So, what do you think is going to happen to our inventory as we shorten up our promised delivery time?
Decrease.
As we shorten the promised delivery time, what's going to have to happen to it? By the way, do you know what people are going to be ordering? No. So what do you have to have? Everything, right? So if I promised them 4-week delivery and I could make and ship the shoes within that 4 weeks, I basically wouldn't have to carry any inventory. However, if it takes me 2 weeks to make the shoes and I'm giving people 1 week delivery, it means that I have to have a stock of inventory. And so there's this trade-off as we put in these better, and by the way, what do you think the purchasers like? Shorter time or longer time? Shorter time. How many of you get pissed off now when you can't get something in 2 days from Amazon? Oh, yeah. And we used to, when I was a kid, it was, allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. 6 to 8 weeks, I forgot what I bought, right? Okay, so we know these people are going to want shorter times, and so that buys you favor with them. That's a benefit. But we have to carry this inventory. What's the downside of carrying the extra inventory?
More cost.
It costs to hold because 2 things. Number 1, we have to have a warehouse. And number 2, what have we got tied up in that inventory? Do you think that inventory showed up on our shelves for free? No, we've got money tied up in that inventory, and we know that there's this cost of capital, right? And so whatever money we have tied up in there is money we've borrowed from someone else, or money we've got from the shareholders who are expecting a return. And so there is a cost to this. So this is one of those balancing things. And I think this is one of the more important things that you're going to learn from the simulation. And that is, in this life, you've probably up to this point, people have been couching things as a minimization or a maximization. So for example, right now, you get 3 job offers, and they are for $65,000, $70,000, and $75,000. Which one do you take? Yeah, you're maximizing, right? Now, if I give you additional information and tell you that the 70,000 people are really, really nice and the 75,000 people are flaming a-holes, which one do you choose? Yeah, and that would be more on the whole optimization thing. I'm going to trade off a little money in order to have a more pleasant life. And so you're going to see almost everything that we talk about here, there's some sort of trade-off involved. And so there's an optimization, and that optimization is going to arrive at a sweet spot. And by the way, that sweet spot is going to depend not only on what you do, but what your competitors do. Oh, by the way, there will be teams C and D also in the simulation, because I have to have 4. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow teams C and D to just run on autopilot. In other words, they're going to be doing the same thing throughout the entire simulation. And you will be able to tell almost immediately whether your decisions are helping you or hurting you by comparing your results to teams C and D, right? Because if you're doing worse than them, it means that you've done something that actually hurt you. If you're doing better than them, that means you are making decisions that are actually helping you. Does that make sense? Okay. Competitive effort in the marketplace. A company can enhance its footwear with new styling and performance features on an annual basis, and can also decrease the number of models and styles in its product lineup. In addition, the company strives to enhance its sales volume and competitive standing against rivals via attractive pricing. By the way, what is attractive pricing? Higher or lower? Lower. What's the downside to lower prices?
Less revenue.
Yeah, and that means less profit, right? Okay, like everything else, it's a trade-off. Advertising, one of the dangers of doing this with a group of finance students. How much money do you think finance and accounting students typically want to spend on advertising? 0, right? Because they think it's unimportant, they think it's stupid. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not. It's not. If you're going to win at this thing, you're going to have to do a well-balanced meal. There's a reason people advertise. I mean, we all get annoyed by advertisements, but do you think people would keep paying millions of dollars for ad campaigns if they didn't work? There must be something to it, right? So don't skimp on the advertising. Mail-in rebates, contracting with celebrities to endorse your brand, building a stronger brand image and reputation with buyers, providing merchandising and promotional support to retailers stocking its brand, good delivery times on shipments to retailers, and using search engine ads to draw online shoppers to your website. So these are the things that you can do to increase your sales volume. Those are the things you can do to increase your sales volume. Okay, now what about your stock? Your stuff is prepared in accord with the generally accepted accounting principles and are reported in US dollars. And your financial accounting is in accordance with the rules and regulations of all security exchanges where the stock is traded. In other words, we're not up to any sort of aggressive accounting here. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so let's talk about the worldwide market for athletic footwear. All companies begin year 11 in the exact same competitive market position. It's so funny to see students and they say, team so-and-so is so far ahead, it's not fair. And I say, wait a minute, where did you all start out in year 11? We all started at the same place, right? Is it a matter of fairness, or is it a matter of they're out-competing you? They're out-competing you. Okay, they all began at the same place, equal in sales volume, global and regional market share, revenues, costs, profits, footwear styling, quality, prices, and so on. In the upcoming years, managers may pursue actions to alter their company's sales and market shares in all regions, opting to increase sales and share in some and decrease sales and share in others, including exiting one or more regions or market segments entirely. Now, this is something that students hardly ever think to do. Is it ever good to walk away from business? Yeah, if that business is losing you money, you've got 2 choices. You either fix the problem or you ditch the business. And too often, people are all about trying to fix the business, and they end up in a really bad place. Let's see. Who could we talk about here? Target. Target's got a load of problems. Now, they could, and part of the problem is that they've got their online stuff being delivered out of their stores, and it's messing up the whole store experience. So one of the things they could do would be to exit the online business. Do you think Target would ever be willing to do that? Probably not. Okay, so every team starts in exactly the same position. Only your decisions and the decisions of your competitors create differences between your companies. Next highlighted section. The combined effect of these factors is reliably expected to produce 7 to 9% annual growth in global demand for years 11 to 15, slowing to 5 to 7% annual growth during years 16 to 20. But the projected growth rates are not the same for all 4 regions. And keep in mind that not everywhere is growing as fast. For instance, North America and Europe, we're not even replacing the people, right? We're below replacement. So it takes, 2.1 kids to replace a mom and dad? And so our markets are not growing nearly as fast as some of these places where people are actually still making more babies. And by the way, some of these places, people didn't used to have shoes. So of course, the market's growing faster there when they start learning about how great it is to wear shoes. Note, branded footwear sales to individuals at the company's website, which were 15% of branded sales in year 10, are expected to rise by 1% annually to 25% of total branded sales in each region by year 20. We are only going to year 18. We're only going to year 18, but you could still expect that to go up from 15 to 16 in year 1, 17 year 2, and so forth. Where actual growth will fall within the indicated 2 percentage point intervals varies by both year and by region. Thus, branded sales might grow by 5.3% in year 11 in North America and 6.6% in year 11 in Europe, Africa, and then grow 6.2% in North America and 5.8% in Europe, Africa, in year 12. Moreover, the forecasts are all based on the assumption that companies in the industry compete aggressively enough to capture the growth opportunities and do not radically alter current price levels, product quality, models, and the other stuff. Now, what does this mean? It means that this market naturally will grow at the rates that they've given, unless you guys do a really great job or a really crappy job. So we're going to see what happens there. Future growth rates may turn out to be higher than forecast in the event more buyers are attracted to purchase branded athletic footwear because of significant declines in industry-wide average prices, sharp increases in the marketing and competitive efforts of rival companies, and/or significant improvements of footwear quality performance over time. Conversely, the factors that can drive potential buyers away and cause the growth of buyer demand to fall below the forecast amounts include sharply higher prices. I'm always amazed when students, they're like, yeah, let's triple our price and we could triple our revenue. What's the problem there? Yeah, people aren't going to buy your $300 shoes if they could buy it from $100 from someone else. Drive away potential buyers and cause the growth in buyer demand to fall below the forecast amounts, including sharply higher prices and or eroding the footwear quality performance and or greatly diminished marketing competitive efforts industry-wide. In other words, the forecast growth rates in the table are reliable only to the extent that rival companies on the whole do not pursue actions that result in future prices, product quality, and marketing and competitive efforts that are significantly different from the levels prevailing in year 10. And so if you guys are doing a good job, the market will grow. If you're doing a bad job, the market may grow less slowly or may even shrink. I've seen the market shrink before when the competitors suck really bad. Let me give you an example of how this, a real world example. In the smartphone world, up till 2006, you guys, this example's getting a little old here. When were you guys born?
2003.
Holy crap. Okay, so let me tell you about the ancient days when we didn't have phones with screens on them. There was this thing called the BlackBerry, and it was how it basically did the very basic things that an iPhone did. And then there were Windows smartphones. And both of these things, at the time, they had a niche, and they were expensive, and people bought them. But we're talking maybe units in the hundreds of thousands per year. and then the iPhone comes along. What happens to the size of the smartphone market? Woof. And then who jumps in? Samsung. Woof. And so it just keeps growing, right? And so when you have a market where people are competing and doing a great job, the market's going to grow leaps and bounds. When you have a market where suddenly if BlackBerry and Windows decided to charge twice as much for the phones, they could very well destroy the market, and the market would just go away. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's move on to the next page. We've got ratings of athletic footwear styling and quality. The International Footwear Federation, a well-respected consumer group, rates the styling and quality of all competitors and assigns a rating of 0 to 10 on their branded footwear offerings. You guys should buy stuff on Amazon. You see the star ratings on Amazon? Think of these as being like that, only you multiply them by 2, and then you've got your SQ rating. The IFF's SQ function is a rating of 5 factors. Number 1, current spending on footwear model for new features and styling. Number 2, the percentage of superior materials used. They're going to be superior materials and standard materials. Current year expenditures for total quality management and or Six Sigma quality control programs. Cumulative expenditures for TQM Six Sigma quality control efforts, and current year and cumulative expenditures to train workers using best practices to assemble footwear. So notice that some of these things, when you spend money on them, it only benefits you in the current period. But some of these things, they say the impact is cumulative. For instance, the TQM Six Sigma spending, and also the best practices training is cumulative. So these are things to think about as you go along. And so you might spend some money on best practices training this year, and you're like, oh, we really didn't see that big of a bump, so we're just not going to do it again. Well, you probably won't get anything then. It's a cumulative thing. Based on where each facility's output is shipped, SQ ratings are calculated for each company in each geographic region where shoes are available for sale. So you don't just have one SQ rating. You've got, how many regions are there?
4.
Yeah, you got 4 for branded footwear. And you also have, so we're going to be doing private label as well as branded footwear. What's private label?
Same thing with a different label.
Okay, so let's give any examples. Think Walmart. You go into Walmart and you're going to buy one of their private label goods. What are the private label brands that they have?
Sam's Choice.
Sam's Choice would be one of them.
Great value.
Yeah, Great Values. Yeah, so those are private label. So it turns out that people will buy private label shoes. I mean, when I was a kid, we were poor. My parents would buy me these Winner's Choice from Walmart. By the way, do you think they were really the choice of winners? No, they let everyone know right off that you were a loser if you were wearing Winner's Choice. So that's private label. Now, is private label necessarily bad? No. Anybody here been to Costco? Yeah, what's their private label?
Kirkland?
Yeah, Kirkland Signature. And that stuff is actually good, right? So private label doesn't necessarily mean trash. It just did in the case of the Walmart stuff at that time. That was the 70s. Okay, so you now have 4 SQ ratings for branded, and you've got 4 for private label, and they don't have to be the same. If you had to guess which one of those you might be lower on, which one would it be? Yeah, the private label, because you're wanting your shoes, your branded shoes, to be a little better than what you're offering on the private label market. By the way, one of the games people always play is trying to figure out who makes the private label stuff. So for example, if you were a Duracell battery user and you figured out that Duracell was actually making those batteries for Kirkland Select, and the Kirkland Select batteries were cheaper, what would you do? Does that make sense? After all, no one looks at your batteries and judges you on the brand, right? At least I hope not. Okay, so you got 8. A company's SQ rating in each market is a weighted average of the SQ ratings at the production facilities from which the pairs are shipped, adjusted up or down for the SQ ratings sold for the unsold pairs from the prior year. By the way, if you make more shoes than you sell, then you've got these shoes that you have to carry over. Are those shoes as attractive as the current year model? No. And so that's why the SQ rating drops from down by 0.3 if they're held over for a year. Okay, let's go down to the distribution channels. The first thing that we have is wholesale sales to independent footwear retailers. So this is what we typically think about with shoes, where they are selling to people like Foot Locker and all these other different shoe chains. Then we also have online sales to consumers at the company's website. Now those are both branded goods. What do you think is going to happen if we put our shoes for sale on our online website for a lot cheaper than the shoe stores can sell them? What's going to happen to the shoe stores? Are they going to be happy with us? Oh, they're going to be pissed. And so it's one of the things we're going to learn later on is that we have to be careful how we price those online shoes to keep from angering the people who are selling our shoes in the shoe stores. And then we've got private label sales to large multi-outlet retailers of athletic footwear. Next paragraph, retailers are recruited by small teams of company-employed sales representatives working out of regional offices. The role of sales reps is to call on retailers, convince them to carry the company's brand, solicit orders, and provide assistance with merchandising and in-store displays. This is another area where finance people tend to fall down. You guys think, salesman, right? And you're going like, we don't need them. Wrong. You do need them. And this merchandising and in-store display stuff, we're going to talk about. That's called retail support. That's going to help them sell your shoes. So, for example, when you go to the grocery store and you see those cardboard displays with all the packages of whatever, and it's not the normal shelf, it's something special that they're doing and it draws your attention, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. Any of you know what Will Fisher is? Any of you enjoy the fine products of Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch? Will Fisher is our local Anheuser-Busch distributor. And my wife and I have toured that place a couple of times. A former student works there and he lets us bring people out. Sometimes we get free beer. Okay, so on with the story. They actually have a shop in there that prints stuff up for retailers. And so all those nicely done signs that you see and all the little table tents on the tables at your favorite Mexican restaurant, those are printed up by Will Fisher. They use that as a way to support their retailers and hopefully improve sales. Does that make sense? You got two old guys in there with one computer and a huge printer. Okay. Retail markups over the wholesale prices of footwear manufacturers can run anywhere from 40% at discount chains to as high as 100% at premium retailers. Thus, a pair of shoes wholesaling for $50 usually retails between $70 and $100. How do we know that these margins are correct? Have you ever seen shoe stores, they got sales like 25% off or buy one, get one free, and yet somehow they're making money and staying in business? It means that their margins to start with were pretty darn high. Moving on down, private label sales are attractive for two reasons. Private label segment is projected to grow at a healthy 12% annually during years 11 to 15 and a brisk 10% during years 16 to 20. Is that lower or higher than branded sales?
Higher.
It's higher. Chain retailers that sell athletic footwear under their own label outsource the pairs they need from manufacturers on a competitive bid basis. So you guys are going to be bidding on that business, and we'll talk about how to do that. Making private label pairs for chain customers allows a manufacturer to use production capability more efficiently and can reduce your overall cost per pair by utilizing some or all of the unused capacity to produce private label pairs. Let's talk about why that's true. In a factory, we've talked already today about fixed expenses and variable expenses. if I don't produce any shoes at all, there's this fixed expense that I just have to keep spending, fixed costs. But the more pairs of shoes that I have, I divide that fixed cost over the more pairs of shoes, and the cost per pair goes down. Fixed cost stays the same, but I'm spreading it out over more shoes. And so if I'm only running my factory currently at 60% making branded footwear, I could try to utilize the other 40% of my capacity to make these private label shoes. And something we'll talk about later in the semester is operating leverage. And if you are a place with high operating leverage, it's amazing the difference it can make being 80% capacity versus being at 60% capacity. An amazing example of operating leverage is where you are sitting right now. This place has a huge fixed cost. By the way, right now I am teaching 8 people, and I am getting paid the same amount that I would be if I were teaching that big room downstairs that has 208 seats with every one of them full. Think about cost per student. It's better to spread it out over more. So that's what we're trying to do here. And that's why the university is very focused on getting more students to come here, because we have such high operating leverage. We need to get more people in here to be able to make this thing where it's, we can't say profitable because we're a nonprofit, right? But where we're making enough money to allow our administrators to live comfortably. Okay. Let's see what we got here. They outsource. Okay, making private label pairs for chain retailers allows manufacturer to use production capability. We've already talked about that. Helps spreading your fixed costs out. Okay, down here under competition, this is important stuff. The efforts of footwear companies to attract buyers and compete effectively with rival brands revolve around 11 factors. If they're telling you there are 11 factors, do you think those things might be important? These are the knobs that you're going to turn to make magic. So you've got, I would underline these as you go, pricing, styling and product quality, and that's the SQ rating, the breadth of products, and I'm having trouble reading this, but the number of models that they have to choose from, celebrity endorsements, advertising, brand image and reputation, and the comparative sizes of the footwear retailer networks, the amount of merchandising and promotional support provided to footwear retailers, mail-in rebates, and the speed at which rivals deliver orders to retailers and sales efforts, and the sales efforts at the company websites. Now, let's talk about what's important. Is the absolute level of these things important? No. It's how you compare to your competitors. So for instance, why do people think Target is expensive? Because they have Walmart to compare it to. And so you're going to see that if you all would collude, which I don't recommend, but if you would collude, you could actually push the prices in the market higher because there wouldn't be somewhere else for them to go. By the way, that's called a cartel. You guys know about OPEC? You guys know about the drug cartels? Same idea. By the way, it's illegal in the United States, so don't do that. Okay, raw material supplies. All the materials used in producing athletic footwear are readily available on the open market. In other words, you guys don't have any super fantastic foam or rubber that is available to just you and no one else. Just recently, suppliers confirmed they would have no difficulty in accommodating increased materials demand in the event footwear makers build additional production capacity to meet growing worldwide demand. One of the things you got to do when you build a new production facility is make sure that you're going to have enough raw materials to utilize it. I'll give you a great example here. What about EV batteries? People are building EV battery factories left and right. What are the raw materials that go into EV factories? Say again? Lithium? What else?
Cobalt.
Yep, lithium, cobalt, and then there are some things called rare earth metals. What's the supply situation look like for those? Not great. So you got, first of all, you got rare earth metals coming out of China, and China has said, Trump, we're just going to squeeze that off. So that's going to limit that. Cobalt, where does cobalt come from? Oh, wow. Do you guys, are you environmentalists who care about the planet and deeply care about human beings? I know you're a humanitarian. Cobalt is mined by children in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in horrible, dangerous conditions. Now, what do you think that means? Assuming you have no moral qualms with that whatsoever, what does that mean, though, for the ability for them to ramp up the supply? They got to make twice as many kids, right? They probably already got all their kids in the mines. So you're not going to be able to ramp that production in a hurry. What we're telling you in the simulation is that that's not going to be a problem here. Suppliers offer two grades of materials, standard and superior. By the way, which one do you think is better?
Superior.
Superior, very good. The qualities of superior and standard materials are the same from supplier to supplier, so you can buy these basically from anybody. All suppliers charge the going market price because of the commodity nature of materials. The use of superior materials improves quality and performance, but the shoes can be manufactured with any percentage combination of standard and superior materials. You could make a pair that is entirely 100% standard materials, and that might fit your strategy. What kind of strategy would that be fitting? Some sort of low-cost strategy. So we're looking more like Walmart and Dollar General as opposed to Target or Kohl's. Let's see. The base material prices, which are subject to change by your instructor. Promise number 2, I will not change the base material prices. I will not be doing that. They're currently $6 a pair, and footwear made of 100% standard materials and $12 per pair for the 100% superior. However, the prevailing base prices are adjusted up or down according to the percentage mix of standard superior materials usage and the strength of demand for footwear materials. So let's think about how this works. If you all jump in there and decide you're all going to use superior materials, what's going to happen to the price of superior materials? Going to go up. What's going to happen to the price of standard materials? It's going to go down. And so at that point, it might make sense for you to say, I wonder what percent standard material I could work into my shoe without hurting my business. So that's one of the questions you're going to have to ask yourself. The going market prices of standard and superior materials in any upcoming year will deviate from their respective base prices whenever the percentage mix is anything other than 60-40. So that's what we just talked about. Material prices fall whenever global production is below 95% of global production capability, and material prices rise when global production is above 110%. So if you guys really stink it up, material prices will actually fall because the demand is down, so they're willing to lower their price to sell their stuff. However, if you guys are kicking it, then that price will go up because there's a higher demand for those materials. Footwear manufacturing. No company has proprietary know-how that translates into a manufacturing advantage. What does proprietary mean?
Unique to your company.
Yeah, it's unique to your company. It's like a trade secret, or you have a patent on it. Now, what they're saying here is that there is no special knowledge that's involved in making these shoes. Pretty much everybody knows everything. Labor productivity is determined more by worker dexterity and effort than by machine speed. Have you guys ever watched a show called How It's Made? Have you ever watched how they make shoes? It's amazing. Even in this day and age, most of the work that goes into shoes is still done, now like with a sewing machine, but it's still done by hand. And there's a lot of stretching and pulling and beating. And so what we're saying here is that this is one of those areas that has yet to be automated. On the other hand, there's ample room for worker error, and unless workers pay careful attention to detail, the quality of workmanship suffers. Training production workers in the use of best practice procedures at each step of the manufacturing process has recently become important to minimizing the reject rates of pairs produced. What's a best practice? Have you guys heard that term before? Mr. Chief, do you know what a best practice is?
They're the best quality standard. I don't know.
Okay, nice try.
Would you say the most efficient way to do something?
Yeah. And so what we're going to do, so when I used to work for this company called Halliburton, and Halliburton they had all these different divisions that they had not unified over the years. And then finally in 1993, they decide to put them all together. 1994, they hire me. And one of my jobs was to act like a bee, a pollinating bee, to go from facility to facility and figure out best practices and spread them to the other facilities. So for example, in Dallas, Texas, we were doing a much better job with machine coolant than we were in Duncan, Oklahoma. So I took that knowledge from Dallas and spread it to Duncan, Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, we had a much better operation for creating these balls that go into ball valves. We could put a mirror finish on the stuff that they use in jet engines. That's how amazing this was. And so I spread that best practice down to Dallas. And there were some other examples too. But the idea is we're going to take what is the best way to do something and we're going to spread it to our other facilities. Now, if you are lucky, you get a chance to tour your competitor's facility and you get to see things and you go, aha, I wish we had had how it's made when I was doing that job. Because my wife and I will watch that show and I'm like, oh crap, I wish I'd known that back in 1996. That's really way easier than what we were doing. So that's what we mean by best practices. What's the best way to do something? So we're going to train our workers in the best way to do something. And if you're fortunate with a best practice, it's going to reduce errors and will also improve productivity, meaning that you can produce more pairs per hour and more of those pairs will actually be good pairs. What is the downside to producing a bad pair of shoes?
It gets returned or.
Gets returned, so we piss off customers.
It's scrapped before you even send it out.
Yeah, what if we catch it in-house? Well, then we're going to throw it out. And I remember the first time as a supervisor, I was getting charged with scrap. And they were charging me not only for the raw material, but for the labor. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you charging me the labor on that? And they're like, Jack, you spent that money already, right? That's gone. So it's not just the materials we're throwing out, it's the labor we're throwing out. Additionally, we were planning to ship that pair of shoes, and now we can't. And so we have to work extra to make up for these shoes that we had to throw out. And so that's why it's important to focus on quality, because it impacts so many different things. By the way, what do you think the landfills around these shoe factories look like? Full of shoes, right? There's a diaper factory in Conway, Arkansas. What do you think the local landfill looks like there? Any of those disposable diapers that get touched by human hands have to be thrown out. The local landfill is just bursting with diapers, and they haven't even been used. Okay. Let's see. Footwear industry observers expect company managers to look closely at the economics of where best to locate any additional footwear production facilities. While trainable labor supplies are available in all 4 geographic regions, base wages for Asia Pacific and Latin America workers currently run about 35% of the base wages in Europe, Africa, and North America. We actually have an expert here on this whole thing. Mr. Huang, what are factory wages in Vietnam like compared to factory wages in the United States?
So I've never been to it.
You don't have to have been to a factory to know. Are people building new factories in Vietnam?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, they are. And they're building factories faster there than they are here. And the reason is the average worker in Vietnam makes a lot less money per hour than the average worker in the US. And so that's one of the things that you've got to keep in mind. All workers worldwide are paid 1.5 times their regular base wages for working overtime. Folks, that's actually a US law, and it would not necessarily apply. Mr. Bardwaj is saying no. Mr. Bardwaj, in India, if you've got people working in a factory and they go over 40 hours a week, do they start getting extra money? No, nobody's. So you got to pay them, right? But they're not going to be getting that sweet, sweet gravy. And so this is just something they're doing to make the simulation more simple for you. Let's see. However, worker productivity levels, labor costs per pair produced, overall production costs in different geographic regions are not only a function of base wages and overtime pay, but also the fact that different facilities in different regions may have different fringe benefit and incentive compensation plans, spend different amounts for best practices training, use new or refurbished footwear making equipment. By the way, what do you think makes better shoes, refurbished or new? New, very good. And may have invested in different production improvement options at the different facilities. It's perilous to leap to the conclusion that production should be concentrated in Latin America and Asia Pacific regions simply because of lower base wages and overtime costs. So let's talk about why we might not want to put all of our production in Europe, Asia Pacific and Latin America. Why would we not want to do that?
Political climate can change.
Okay, political climate can change. What else? Where are the big markets for these shoes?
US and Europe.
US and Europe, right? So what does that mean as far as shipping costs go?
Transportation.
Yeah, transportation costs are going to go higher. And then we also have tariffs to be concerned about. And so these are all things you're going to have to balance out. That cheaper labor versus the shipping and the tariffs. Also, we're going to have currency that comes into play here. How many of you have had Dr. Whitty's international finance class? Oh, man. So you guys haven't studied triangular currency arbitrage with bid-ask spread?
I took it just off Witty.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're missing out. Because Whitty throws in the bid-ask spread on the triangular arbitrage and really makes it spicy. Anyway, back to the story. So, do you think currency fluctuations impact decisions? Yeah. Yeah, so right now the US dollar is weakening against other currencies. What's that going to do to our exports? Is it going to make them more attractive or less attractive? Yeah, it's going to make them more attractive. Now, what does it do? How does it do to the attractiveness of us importing other people's stuff?
Less.
Yeah, it reduces it. And so there are impacts to these currency fluctuations that you're going to have to take into account. And that's where we go next, exchange rates. Let's see if I've got everything here yet. Oh, it's the cost of producing footwear in one region and exporting some of the pairs produced. The supply, buyer demand in another region are substantially impacted by import tariffs, fluctuating currency exchange rates, and higher cost of shipping pairs. We just talked about all that. Uncertain whether tariffs in future years will rise and by how much. I will not be changing the tariff rates, but the exchange rates will be changing. And the exchange rates you're going to see are determined by real world changes in exchange rates. So not even the people who wrote the simulation know at this point what's going to happen with the exchange rates as we go forward. One strategy to escape paying import tariffs and guard against adverse changes in exchange rates is to maintain a production base in each of the 4 geographic regions and rely upon those facilities to satisfy demand for the company's brand of footwear in their respective regions. Folks, I'm going to tell you straight up, I have never seen people who built facilities in all 4 regions and did better as a result. And so you need to take into account everything that's going on. And maybe Europe, Africa is a relatively small market. Maybe we can get by with not having a factory there. So you need to think through these things. Of course, how are you going to know the market size? You're going to have that information when you're making your decisions. Let's talk about exchange rate impacts. All footwear companies are subject to exchange rate adjustments at 2 different points in their business. The first occurs when the footwear is shipped from a facility in one region to a distribution warehouse in a different region. So if you're making your shoes in Latin America and you're shipping them to Europe, that's your first exchange rate change. The second one occurs when the local currency the company receives in payment from local retailers and online buyers over the course of the year. Anywhere other than the U.S., they have to be converted to the U.S. dollar. And so even if you are producing and shipping shoes in the same like Latin American region, you're going to end up with a currency exchange situation there when you convert it to US dollars for financial reporting purposes. Lately, we see a lot of companies, like Procter & Gamble is one of them. Procter & Gamble has operations all over the world, and their net income in US dollars did not look as good as we expected. And one of the things that they said was that when they converted the money they made overseas back to US dollars at that time, it wasn't as beneficial to them. And so, but these things go both ways. Do you think when the currency situation benefits them that they make a big deal out of it? No, they're just going to let you think that they're smart, right? But if it goes against them, they'll certainly tell you about it very loudly. Okay. On to the next page. BSG automatically accesses all the relevant real-world exchange rates between decision periods, handles the calculation of both types of exchange rate adjustments, and reports the size of each year's percentage adjustments in your corporate lobby, as well as on the pertinent entry pages and in company reports. Folks, this is an advantage that you will not have in the real world. You guys are going to actually know in advance what the exchange rate problem is going to be. Do you think real world people know at the beginning of the year what the exchange rate is going to be at the end of the year? No idea. You definitely need to keep a watchful eye on the sizes of exchange rate adjustments in each year and understand what you can do to mitigate adverse impacts and take advantage of positive impacts of shifting exchange rates. I've actually had students that in their presentation, they said that managing this exchange rate thing was the thing that set them apart from their competitors. The sizes of exchange rate adjustment each year are always equal to 5 times the actual period-to-period percentage change in the real-world exchange rates, and those the currencies are the US dollar, the euro, the Brazilian real, and the Singapore dollar. And they're going to multiply the percentage by 5 to translate exchange rate changes over a few days between decision periods into changes that are more representative of potential full-year coverage. And so they're looking at basically a week's worth of exchange data, and then they're going to blow it up to make it look more like an annual fluctuation. The maximum exchange rate adjustment during any period is capped at plus or minus 20%. Even though it's common in the real world to have exchange fluctuations greater than that. Can you guys think of an example of a country that might have exchange fluctuations greater than 20%? You guys don't follow the news at all. Let's talk about, say again?
Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil. So any of these places that have potential high inflation, as their currency inflates, if their inflation gets worse, what's going to happen to the value of their currency? That's going to drop. Also, Zimbabwe. If you ever want to know a neat story about hyperinflation, take a look at Zimbabwe, take a look at Venezuela. And in both cases, what drives the sharp exchange rate, especially on the downside, is usually the government does something stupid. And that's been the case both in Zimbabwe and Venezuela. Do you think it's possible our country, this leadership could do something stupid and tank the US dollar? Absolutely. Okay. No exchange rate adjustments in year 11, but going beyond that, you'll know the years. You actually are going to know the years coming, what the exchange rates are going to be. Okay, so let's talk about competitive factors. So there are 5 factors that impact both internet sales and wholesale sales of branded footwear. So the first is the SQ rating. Footwear shoppers consider the widely available and much publicized annual SQ ratings of the various brands of athletic footwear compiled by the IFF to be a trusted measure of how a company's footwear offers compare on styling and quality against competing brands of athletic footwear. Market research indicates that SQ ratings are generally the second or third most important factor. Maybe underline that. SQ ratings are the second or third most important factor, along with breadth of product selection in shaping consumers' choices of which footwear brand to purchase. a company whose SQ rating in a region is above the all-company average SQ rating, thus enjoys an important competitive advantage. Remember earlier we said it's not the absolute value of these things, it's the relative value. And so if you're higher than the average for the region, then you have an advantage. Whereas below average SQ rating constitutes an important competitive disadvantage. The more a company's SQ rating in a region is above the all-company average, the more that footwear shoppers in the region are attracted to purchase the company's brand, unless the company's higher SQ rating is undermined by, one, charging a price premium for the added styling quality that buyers consider too high or not worth the extra cost, and two, unfavorable comparisons against rivals on other buyer-relevant features, such as comparatively few model styles to choose among, brand advertising, mail-in rebates, and the appeal of celebrity endorsers, etc. I have seen people with a sky-high SQ rating still end up coming in last. And it's because they focused on SQ rating to the exclusion of everything else. They were charging huge prices, and they only had 50 models and things like that, and they find themselves in a world of hurt. Number two, the number of models and styles. Companies offering comparatively fewer models and styles than rivals risk losing sales and market share to competitors offering greater selection unless they offset their narrower selection with other appealing competitive attributes such as a lower price, higher SQ rating, higher appeal of celebrity endorsers, and so on. Sometimes people say, oh, we're going to be like a luxury brand and we're only going to have a limited number of models. That, I have not seen that work in the BSG. I have not seen that work in the BSG. Typically, the more number of model and styles you have, the better off you are. Of course, there's a cost to that, and we'll get to that. Brand advertising. A company's aggressiveness in promoting its footwear in each geographic region is judged competitively stronger when their average annual advertising expenditures exceed the all-company regional average and is weaker when you're below the average. Well, that makes perfect sense. When cross-rival differences on all the other competitive factors are, on balance, close to equal among company rivals in a region, companies with above-average current year brand advertising expenditures will outsell companies with below-average current expenditures. I'm going to teach you a little Latin today. Ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus means all else equal. Now what are we're talking about here? All these are ceteris paribus arguments. If everything else is the same and you spend more than average on your advertising, then you will have an advantage. You could, though, do something stupid in one of the other decisions, like low SQ. And you could advertise the living hell out of that. And it wouldn't do you any good because no one wants to buy your crappy shoes. Or you could be asking way too much for your shoes, and you could advertise the hell out of that. And no one would want to buy your shoes. And so we have to make this ceteris paribus argument where if everything else is the same, then people with higher SQ will do better. If all else is the same, then people with a higher number of models will do better. People with higher advertising expenditures will do better. Then we have the appeal of celebrities endorsing the company's brand. Footwear, let's see, the influence of a company's celebrity endorsers is, of course, magnified by higher brand advertising and search engine advertising. First of all, let's make sure you guys understand what a celebrity endorser is. What's a celebrity endorser? Yeah, so they're a famous person who has chosen to associate with your brand in exchange for money, right? Okay, so I'll give you an example here. Tiger Woods. Who did Tiger Woods represent? Say again? TaylorMade, okay, who else? Nike. Now, in the beginning, when Tiger Woods was representing Nike, was that really good for their company? Yeah. And then what happened? Yeah, so he starts getting injured, but he also You guys may be too young to remember it, but he started fooling around. Yeah, this has been a while. That was like 2007. Oh, you guys were like 4 years old. Tiger's a player in more than one way. Right? Tiger gets around. And in fact, Tiger had to go to a sex addiction clinic in the town where I lived before I moved here. And so we had just moved here, and all this comes out, and they're like, Tiger Woods is getting sex addiction treatment in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And I'm like, phew, I didn't know we had a sex addiction clinic in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Okay, now, what happens to the value of Tiger's endorsement after his wife beats the hell out of him? It happened with a golf club. Yeah, plummets. And so you've got these celebrities that are endorsing your brand. They don't all have the same appeal. And that appeal isn't necessarily constant. It can change based on what they're doing. Okay, now, here's the other thing, and a lot of people don't understand this, and that is that having a celebrity endorser doesn't do you any good if you don't spend any money on advertising. Can anybody tell me why? Yeah, no one's going to know that Tiger's endorsing your product versus just wearing a hat that someone gave him, right? And so you got to have, and I remember Tiger was advertising for Buick. By the way, Buick is a car for old people, but he's advertising for Buick, and you couldn't watch TV for more than 2 hours without seeing Tiger Woods at least 3 times telling you how great freaking Buicks were. Do you think Tiger actually drove a Buick in real life? No. The vehicle he was driving the day that he drove into that tree and his wife beat the hell out of him with a golf club was a Cadillac Escalade. Okay, companies with more influential celebrity lineups in a region enjoy an advantage in attracting buyers to their brand in either retail stores or online as compared to regional rivals. Celebrity influence is different based on the region. Let me ask you this question. In the U.S., if I say football, what am I talking about? Yeah, the NFL. And you might think about people, and I'm like way out of my depth on football, but Deion Sanders was one of the great players that I remembered. And then, you know, there are those guys that were with the Patriots for however, well, anyway. So there are people whose names you would recognize, and as an American, it would be really important to you. Do people in India give a rat's ass about the NFL? No. In fact, if I say football to an Indian, what do you think about? Soccer. Now, who's more important to you? Ronaldo? What's Ronaldo's? Yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo. Is he more important to you or Deion Sanders? Yeah, Ronaldo. And so what we're saying is in different regions, different celebrities have different levels of attractiveness. And the people who do this really well, if they're struggling in a particular region, they will look for celebrity endorsers who have high favorability in that region. They will hire that endorser, and then they will increase their advertising in that region, and it allows them to get that uplift. And by the way, if someone's only popular in one region, do you think they're going to cost you as much as someone that's popular in all the regions? No. So you can actually kind of pick things up on the cheap and really help yourself out in a region just by getting an endorser that's strong in that region and then raising your advertising in that region. Okay, that's all we're going to do today. Next time we're going to start at image and brand reputation. By the way, you need to read the entire player guide before you do homework 1. And you've got discussion 1 due on Sunday. And then you've got a bunch of stuff they do on the 29th. All that stuff is on the back page of the syllabus. Finally, decisions are team activities. Everything else is an individual activity. What does that mean? As a team, only one of you needs to enter in the decisions, but you all must individually take BSG Quiz 1. Any questions?
For the practice decisions, are those also team activities?
Yeah, any decisions for your team are team things. And Usually, you guys will elect one person to actually enter the data after you've got together and made the decisions. Now, if you figure out that if someone's getting in there before 11:59 p.m. on the due night and jacking things around, then you need to take that person aside and have a talk with them, right? And I've seen that before. Not in my class, my wife's class. She had some psychopath that was out there. Why would you do that? The truth is the guy thought he was smarter than everybody else. Do you think he was? No. Other questions?
I have a question on advertising kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If I advertise like super heavy for the first 2 years, do I get compound effect? Or if I cut it out, do I lose?
That's a good question. They never mention in the player's guide that advertising has cumulative value.
Okay, so I have to keep up ad spend.
Yep. So there's some things that you're going to see that you have cumulative benefit and other things that do not. Good question. Other questions?
I gotta figure out how to word this. So, we're both operating in the same economy,
Yep.
but is Team B also affected by Team A's actions?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Let's say that they lower their prices across the board by $5 a pair. What is that instantly going to do to the number of pairs that they sell? It's going to increase. And what's that going to do to the number of pairs you sell? Yeah. Yeah, that's the most important thing that you're going to learn from this. That and the idea of optimization. What other people do impacts you.
Is there like a set number of endorsers we can choose from, like a set list?
Yeah, they'll come out and they won't all be available immediately. They come available as you go. It's like this year it's Rosie O'Donnell and whoever.
Are they
It won't-
exclusive to one company or?
Yes.
pick one?
Over the course of the contract, they will be. So you're going to contract them for like 2 or 3 years. And then after that's over, then they'll be back available again.
Can we start bidding wars or no?
Well, so you can't do a bidding war because it's basically everyone's going to place a secret bid, and then the highest bid gets them. But we'll get into that and what kind of strategy you should use when you're bidding on those people.
Will we be doing most of our work inside of class or outside, like with our teams?
Oh, with your team, and definitely outside. Definitely outside. And you wouldn't want to do it in class because then the other team would overhear you. Does that make sense? You guys are competing. We're out for blood. We're not really out for blood.
What is the, when we were talking about, you can ship shoes with, between 1 and 4 weeks. What is the production time for those? Does it give us that?
No, it doesn't give us that, but when we get to making decisions on which speed to ship, we'll talk about what the implications are.
Okay. And then for where it says that the suppliers will have adequate supply for growth, will that remain for the entire simulation?
Yes, you're not going to have to worry about losing your lithium, cobalt, or rare earth metals. Other questions?